Busy?
Everybody up, please.
Can I stand here, not be in the way?
No, you're in the way. There's the flag behind you.
Oh, no, it's there.
Okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the September 11th meeting of the Rotary Club of Lexington. We're going to start today with the Pledge of Allegiance by past President Michelle. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then we'll have One Voice of America by past President Spencer.
My
Country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
And we'll have the invocation by past President Murray.
Let us just keep in mind how lucky we are to be able to meet like this safely, thinking of all the things that happen around the world, including the recent earthquake in Morocco, devastating, absolutely. And how lucky we are to be around here and to be able to continue to serve. Amen.
Thank you very much. And we have the Secretary of Attendance by Acting Secretary Michelle.
Take your time.
One.
4, 6.
Don't take your shoes off.
Okay, we have 11 Rotarians and 1 visiting Rotarian. Thank you very much. We can start off with fines and happy dollars. I've got 5 happy dollars because it's so nice to be back here at Minuteman. I love the food here and it's just good to be back. And I've also, one of these dollars is to maybe that past President Spencer will never lead one of the songs again.
Happy to never do that again.
Wow. That was a treacherous person of America. I don't blame you though. Would anybody else have any
I
lines?
do. I have 10 happy dollars for being back here for our first meeting. This is a wonderful place. 5 that I do want to support what you say about Scott ever again.
I think it would have been better if he just sang by himself.
I'm not sure it would.
Sorry, Spencer, I'm trying to have you back.
Thank you. Alan?
Yes.
Spencer?
I'll put in 20 happy dollars. Please bill me, Michelle.
We said 50.
No. Not that happy.
Oh, wait a minute. All right. Then we have to fine him $30.
I haven't been here the last couple of months, been up in New Hampshire for most of that time, being able to actually get some time up on the lake house, so happy dollars for that. Not really happy to be back and having to sing, but happy to be at Rotary.
We're happy to see you. And anybody else, Mari?
Yeah, I think that I'm not here, but I think Dan Olson should be fined for not being here today because the singing was just atrocious.
We need him, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, kick him in while he's down, huh?
Yeah, get right to the words.
Are we billing you too?
Nope.
Give me the money.
You're billing Dan Olson.
He's gonna be like, what is this?
I'm not going to pay his fine.
Anybody else? Part of the $10, Michelle?
So I have happy dollars. I apologize, I haven't been here. I was traveling all of July to New Hampshire and then to Italy. I was gone for 16 days. Haven't really been here. Oh, that wasn't very nice. Did you get that on video? Can we do that again? So, happy to be back.
Okay.
Although Danny made me come back because he dropped this bag off saying you need to go fill in for me. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. We will go on to our announcements. I just wanted to announce today, just in the memory of 9/11, past President Cleve invited me to this Rotary Club of Concord event that Sharon Spalding held at her building with the firefighters and policemen, first responders of Concord. They honor each of the firemen and a police person, they're both women this year, every year, and it was just a nice event and a nice way to remember the tragedy in the lives that were lost and the people that stepped in and risked their lives. So that was a nice thing that I got to do this morning, and just wanted to acknowledge it. Announcements today are the next thing we have coming up before the next meeting is our senior barbecues. So this is an all-club participation event. We really want everybody to participate. So they are next Tuesday, not tomorrow, but the next Tuesday, at Countryside each day they're at 4:30. The first one Tuesday is at Countryside, the next one on Wednesday, the day after, is at Pinebrook Village, and the next one on Thursday is at Greeley Village. So if you have not seen the email, please check for it, respond for it, or if you need Dan to send you another one, or you can just respond by email and say, I want to be here Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. They're always a great time. We always have a lot of fun. You get hamburgers and hot dogs, and it's a fun event. So we'll see you guys all there next week. It's hard to believe, but it's time to start talking about the cash raffle. So past President Michelle is the chair of that committee, and everybody is responsible for selling 3 to 5 tickets. All members of the club. You get one as part of you pay for one as part of your membership, then you're also responsible for selling a few $100 tickets. This is one of our 2 main fundraisers of the year, and we need everybody to participate. And if you need help with us, just reach out to us, and we can try to help you out if you need help selling them. We're still working on the venue. We have a tentative date of Friday, November 17th. So keep your, just keep that in the back of your mind that is coming up. And we'll be getting tickets, and we'll start to sell them shortly. Another thing, just a reminder, is that it's a new billing cycle, starts at the end of the month. So if you have any outstanding bills, just to get them paid so they don't start to add up. Because that's never fun. We got a couple of thank you letters. This was to Dear Mr. Freeling and the Rotary Scholarship Committee. I hope this card finds you all in good health and high spirits. I wanted to express my deepest gratitude for being selected as one of the recipients of your scholarship. It means so much to have my efforts recognized by you all, and to have your support in my future academic endeavors. I cannot wait to hear all about the amazing work your organization will continue to do. Thank you so much. Warm regards, Serena, Kyra. And then we also got a nice thank you from the Eddie Barsamian's family for the flowers, it wasn't flowers, for the donation in lieu of flowers to the Perkins School for the Blind in memory. For his mother, I believe. I think that's it for now. So without further ado, we're going to do our weekly raffle. And things were donated by various people.
So they were donated by, Lexington Rotary.
Oh, let's see, Lexington Rotary. Arlex Oil.
Lexington High School.
Lexington High School, yep.
And, what's the name of that? Beckley Financial. And Music School.
I would fine. For next week, we'll put it.
All right, so get these tickets, John.
Oh, yes, raffle tickets.
Blue tickets. Everybody wins. 129.
Oh.
You got it.
I got it.
Next ticket. 085. 085.
That was Cleve.
Hold on, we got one, yeah. It was Cleve, but he's not here.
Cleve is donating it.
Go right up.
Come on.
Go right up. We like to share.
Go up there, Stephen.
082.
Oh, it's me, I'm gonna race him.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any of those three things. Wait, happen. And last but not least, yeah. You wanted Go ahead. 086!
It's the whole table.
Yeah, like, I got it. Yeah.
You know what, I'll give this to Davina. She-
Don't do it! If you want to choose one, really. I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
And it's dented, it's not that good anymore.
That's right. Very straight.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks for everybody's patience. It's now time for our speaker. So Murray, if you would be so kind to introduce our speaker.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
President May. Today, we have with us Steve Fine, who founded the Melanoma Prevention Education Foundation, Melanoma Education Foundation. I'll tell you how we get involved with this because it was very personal and it's very interesting. And Steve received his master's degree. Master's and PhD at Northeast University. My favorite subject, organic chemistry.
You're the one.
I'm a weird guy, I liked it. Tell me, Steve.
You're not looking for
Anyhow,
arguments.
a lot of fun. He has spent time in Pennsylvania at Lehigh University doing some graduate work, and then at Lafayette College where he was an assistant professor, so it's a very fine school down in Pennsylvania, where I went to school also. And we were just happy to have him here. He works for, he is currently, are you heading up the ACSA company on the West Coast?
No, that's passed.
That's passed. Okay. And they make chemicals for, I think, software semiconductors. So, pretty interesting. So anyhow, Steve's going to speak today on melanoma prevention. I think you'll find it very, very interesting. Those people who aren't here today for various reasons are going to miss a very, very fine lecture. Steve, fine. And by the way, Steve is a member of the Rotary Club of Peabody.
Because of that, I can walk into any Starbucks in the country and get a cup of coffee for only $4.
That's good.
Okay, so this is a talk about early self-detection and risk reduction of
Steve,
melanoma.
can I, if anybody wants to move, I'm going to move up. If you guys want to move up, there are so few of us.
Wait a minute, you guys have tickets for those seats?
I need to collect an additional $10.
Premium chairs.
So I'll give you a brief history of stories of photos of young people who lost their lives to melanoma. Talk about the three common skin cancers that concern melanoma because it's the most serious often. Talk about the role of ultraviolet radiation in causing melanoma. Time permits, perhaps we'll answer questions. Okay, so the Melanoma Education Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit incorporated officially in the year 2000. Actually, began unofficially a year before that. Our focus has always been on early self-detection as prevention. And up until recently, our audience has been high school and middle school health teachers and their students, and it still is, but we've expanded to include Rotary clubs in the Eastern and Atlantic time zones. Last time that we come before the pandemic, our free online lessons and videos are being used in all 50 states of Canada and over 1,700 different schools. These are photos of young people who lost their lives to melanoma. And they vary in age from 11 years old to 36 years old. My son Dan was 26 when he died of melanoma in 1998. We think of most cancers as being diseases of aging, but melanoma is an exception that can affect you at almost any age. So there are three common skin cancers. They are basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. The two carcinomas usually don't affect people much under age 40. They're usually not fatal. They mostly occur in chronically sun-exposed areas of the skin, and even though they're common throughout the U.S., they're even more common in the Sunbelt states. Melanoma isn't a class by itself. It can develop as young as preteen. If you don't find it early enough, it can be fatal. It can occur anywhere on the skin, even areas that have never been exposed to sunlight at all. And unlike the two carcinomas, the incidence of new melanoma in the more northern states is not much different from that in most of the Sunbelt states. Basal cell carcinoma is the most common of all cancers. It usually looks like a pink or flesh-colored nodule. You see two examples of it here. Often you see cratering, which is apparent in this photo. They grow slowly. The good news is they're almost never fatal. But they can grow faster beneath the skin than above the skin, so you're better off dealing with them sooner rather than waiting. Squamous cell carcinoma is more serious. You see an example of it on the left. It usually looks like an irregular, scaly, slightly raised red patch that either has a scab or bleeds. And it develops from a precursor lesion called actinic keratosis, which is very common in sun-sensitive individuals. Most actinic keratoses don't go on to become squamous cell tumors. Usually these tumors don't metastasize like melanoma can, but if they're located over or close to a vital organ, the tumor can grow, and if it reaches into that organ, it becomes much more serious. They usually, whoops, sorry about that, need to go back a step. Well, anyways, usually they don't, what was I going to say? They tend to grow at a slow to moderate rate, but when they're on the lips, they grow faster. So turning to melanoma now, the American Cancer Society is expecting nearly 190,000 new cases this year in the U.S., and that makes it almost 5 times as prevalent as new HIV/AIDS infection. Just about every high school student in the country graduates knowing about HIV and AIDS, but relatively few know about melanoma, in spite of the fact that it's much deadlier and that it can affect them while they're young. On average, somebody loses their life to melanoma in the U.S. once every hour. And 25% of new melanoma patients are under age 40. Again, that's very high for cancer. From the mid-20s to the late 20s, it's the most prevalent of all cancers. And in women under 39, it's second only in prevalence to breast cancer. Some more bad news about it. The vulnerability begins early in life. It doesn't peak like some of the childhood cancers. It continues to increase throughout your life. It can strike no matter how good your physical condition or health is, no matter what your skin color is. Only about 10% of new melanomas involve a family history, the other 90% don't. And usually there aren't any symptoms except the kind you can see until it's too late. Once it gets beyond the skin and into an internal organ, it's very often not curable. But with all those dire features, there are 2 big redeeming features. First, it's the easiest of any cancer for you to find by yourself at an early stage. And if you find it early, it's all but guaranteed to be curable. Cure consists of going into a dermatologist's office, getting a shot of Novocaine, having the melanoma removed, and that cures you permanently without any need for chemo or radiation. But the key is you've got to find it early. There are 2 kinds of risk factors for melanoma, the kind you're born with and can't do much about, and the controllable kind. Among the inherited risk factors, if you have 50 or more moles, if you have any irregularly shaped or large moles, and the more you have, the greater the risk. If you have sun-sensitive skin, And if you have a family or a personal history of any kind of skin cancer, very few of us don't have at least one of those factors, and many of us have multiple factors. Among the controllable factors, there are 3 that stand out. If you've had any blistering sunburns under the age of 20, just 1 doubles your lifetime risk of melanoma. 3 or more increases your risk by a factor of 5. If you expose skin that's normally covered to strong sunlight, that's a high risk factor. And unfortunately, that's exactly the kind of exposure we tend to get in the northern states and in New England, where we're indoors during the cold months of the year protecting our skin, and then late spring and summer arrives, we're outdoors at the beach, pool, or playing fields, and we're exposing that skin to strong sunlight. The worst thing you can do to give yourself melanoma is to use tanning beds regularly. I'll speak more about that in a while. In general, the lighter your skin, the greater your lifetime risk of melanoma. It's highest in the white population, about 1 in 38, lowest in the black population, about 1 in 1,000. But anyone can get melanoma, no matter what the color of their skin is. Bob Marley was a reggae singer from Jamaica. He died of melanoma when he was 36. Began under the nail of a big toe, and before anyone knew what was happening, it had spread to his brain. He died of melanoma tumors on his brain. More recently, Dr. Matori, who was a breast cancer surgeon at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, died of melanoma when she was 48. It began on her scalp, and it was hidden by her hair until it was too late. About 30% of new melanomas develop from a pre-existing mole. Most of the others, 70%, arise from clear skin. There are 2 kinds of moles, normal and atypical. These are examples of normal moles. The one on the left is flat, the one on the right is raised. But normal moles have sharp borders with the surrounding skin. They have uniform pigmentation, and they're less than 1/4 inch in diameter. Atypical moles usually look different from normal moles. You see 2 examples at the bottom. They often have fuzzy borders, irregular shapes, non-uniform shades. And in the case of a raised atypical mole, like you see on the bottom right, you often see a fried egg surface. Looks like a little yolk surrounded by a flat, fuzzy area. And most atypical moles are more than 1/4 inch in diameter. Some more information about moles. Chance of melanoma developing from a normal mole is very small, less than 1 in 3,000. Much higher from an atypical mole, about 1 in 100. It's also more likely to arise from a flat or from a slightly raised mole than from a fully raised mole you've had for a long time. Moles with hair growing from them are no more likely to develop melanoma than similar moles without hair. This is a simulated progression of an atypical mole into a melanoma, and you can see some changes happening during this progression, and change is the key warning sign that something on your skin may be a melanoma or other kind of skin cancer. The 3 most common changes are an increase in size, a change in color, a change in shape. You can see all 3 of those changes happening during this progression. The change can also be on the surface of the growth, the way it feels to the touch. The most dangerous change is when there's an increase in thickness anywhere within a growth on your skin. A new mole or growth that shows up out of the blue wasn't there 2 or 3 weeks ago and seems to be growing. And that's especially true if you don't have many moles or if the new one looks different from those that you do have. What you don't want to do is wait for the non-visual warning signs like itching or bleeding or ulceration, because by then you may be compromising your chance of survival. There are 2 main types of melanoma. They're called radial and nodular. Radial melanomas grow 2-dimensionally out on the surface of the skin at first. They look unusual or ugly, and because of that, they're very easy to self-detect. In adults, about 80% of new melanomas are radial. Nodular melanomas grow mostly downward beneath the skin. They often look innocent, and for that reason, they're more difficult to self-detect. In younger people, about half of new melanomas are nodular. These are 4 photos of radial melanomas. And as I mentioned, their growth is 2-dimensional at first. They almost always exhibit 2 or more warning signs called the ABCD signs. A is asymmetry, and it means if you draw an imaginary line through the center of any of these, one half will not be a mirror image reflection of the other half. B is border. The borders of radial melanomas are usually irregular, uneven, or notched. You can see that in all four of these examples. The colors can be multiple. You see that in the first one and the fourth one. Well, you may see multiple shades, which is apparent in the second one. And the diameters of radial melanomas are usually more than 1/4 of an inch, even in the early stages. Every melanoma, no matter whether it's radial or nodular, if it's allowed to keep growing, will eventually enter a very dangerous phase called the vertical invasive growth phase, and that's when the clock really starts ticking rapidly. So most of the growth is downward where you can't see it. It's the most dangerous part, but fortunately that downward growth is usually accompanied by changes in the surface as well. And what you see here is 3 different vertical growing melanomas, but you're looking at the surfaces of them. And one is early, the other is intermediate, the third one is late stage. And that growth above the surface usually manifests itself either in little bumps, like you see here, the dark bumps, a nodule, or overall elevation. What varies is how long it takes for that dangerous phase to begin. And that depends on the kind of melanoma. For radial melanomas, you generally have between 6 and 12 months from the time it first becomes visible on the skin. For nodular melanomas, the time could be as short as 3 months. So radial melanomas start at the thin outer layer of the skin, the epidermis. And when they're confined to that layer, they are 100% curable in a short outpatient visit. As the tumor grows and it reaches the border between the epidermis and the dermis, it's still very highly curable, probably 85–90% curable, again in an outpatient setting. When it reaches the midpoint of the dermis at 2 millimeters, the prognosis becomes less certain. And when it reaches the deepest layers of the dermis at about 3 or 4 millimeters, the prognosis is not favorable. There are 2 reasons for that. First, as the tumor gets bigger, it reaches a stage where it starts to shed off malignant cells around it. And as it gets deeper into the dermis, there are more and more blood vessels nearby that can pick up some of those malignant cells and carry them anywhere in the body. These are 4 examples of nodular melanomas. The first 2 on the left are early stage, very likely curable. And the third one was interesting. It was a flesh-colored oval-shaped melanoma. It was on the earlobe of the patient. It was about 2 millimeters thick, so time will tell if it's curable. The fourth one was a large nodule on the ankle of a 12-year-old boy, and unfortunately it was fatal. So nodular melanomas usually don't show any of the ABCD warning signs or other radial growth characteristics. They usually start from clear skin, they often look innocent, and you may have as little as 3 months to act from the time that they first become visible on the skin. They have a different set of warning signs, called the EFG signs. And all 3 of them must be there for you to have a possible nodular melanoma. Only 1 or 2 of them are present. It's very unlikely that what you're seeing is a nodular melanoma. So E is elevated. It has to be partly or completely elevated above the surface of the skin. It has to be firm to the touch. If it's flabby, it's probably just a harmless skin tag. But it has to be growing for at least 2 weeks. Some new growths, like a zit for example, will show up suddenly on your skin, grow for a week or 2, and then stop growing or even start to fade. But nodular melanomas are out of control cancers, and once they start growing, they don't stop. About 5 to 10% of new melanomas are never found on the skin at all. They're only found after there's been an internal symptom. And it's believed that's caused by a process called surface regression. And in that process, your immune system successfully destroys melanoma cells at the surface, but not necessarily before malignant cells have been released beneath the surface. And what this photo shows is a partially regressed melanoma. The 3 dark areas are where melanoma remains. In the middle is where the immune system has cured the surface melanoma. It looks like normal skin in that area. It's very rare for a melanoma to actually originate internally, less than 0.2%. So Now I'm going to give you a little quiz, now that you know what melanoma looks like. 3 of the growths that you see on this slide were melanoma, and 3 of them were benign skin growths. So in the next several seconds, if you have a pencil or a pen, just jot down the numbers of the ones that you think were melanomas. If you don't have a pencil or pen, just make a little note.
Like the music.
Okay, now I'm going to show you the ones with melanoma. You're probably going to be surprised at some of these. The red arrow shows the numbers 3, 6, and 4 blue melanomas. The only one that really looks like a melanoma is number 3. 6 and 4 could very easily be mistaken for benign skin growths. Well, don't feel badly if you miss some of these. This was a trick question. I withheld some important information from you, and that information was what any of these looked like 2 or 3 months before these photos were taken. Appearance alone is not always enough to clue you into the existence of possible melanoma. You also need to know the history. And the only way you can get that is to check your skin by yourself regularly. Regularly means what we recommend is once every month, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Number 4 was the one that was the most interesting to me. It was in the big toe of a patient who asked the dermatologist whether it should be removed. The dermatologist looked at it and said, oh, no, it's got sharp borders with surrounding skin, it's got uniform pigmentation, and it's a little less than 1/4 of an inch in diameter, so keep an eye on it, but if it doesn't change, you don't need to worry about it. And the patient said, well, I think it has been getting a little larger gradually over the past couple of months. I feel better if you removed it. So the dermatologist removed it, and about a week later the pathology report came back, and sure enough it was an early melanoma. And that brings up another point, which is you need to be your own advocate. If you have something on your skin that you're not comfortable with or suspicious of, never let anything or anyone stop you from having it removed. We have a saying, when in doubt, have it out. And I don't know anyone who ever regretted following that advice, but I know a few people or their next of kin who regretted not following it. So now where does melanoma occur on the skin? Well, unlike the 2 carcinomas, it can occur anywhere on the skin. In white males, the back is the most common location for melanoma. In white females, the backs of the lower legs are the most common location. And those are areas that tend to get relatively little exposure during the cold months of the year, much heavier exposure during the late spring and summer. In darker skinned population, the most common location for melanomas are the feet, and to a lesser extent the hands. That kind of melanoma can also affect the white population, and it is not caused by sun exposure. So how do you check your skin to see if you have something that needs to be examined further? Once you get the hang of it, it's not difficult. It takes about 10 minutes to do a complete skin check exam by yourself. And you need 2 mirrors, a large wall mirror in a well-lighted room, and like your bathroom, or a hand mirror, the end of your mirror with a long handle. And you hold that hand mirror partly behind your head, you move it slowly, partly behind your neck and your back. Do the same thing on both sides of your body, and while you're moving the hand mirror, you look into the wall mirror to see what's being reflected from it. You also need a hairbrush or dryer to part your hair and check your underlying scalp. You need a flashlight to illuminate poorly lighted areas. The name of the game is to be thorough. There isn't a single square inch of your body where a melanoma cannot develop. So you want to check all parts of your body. If you have a difficult time checking your back or your scalp, get a family member, a partner, or a close friend to help out. It's especially important to check your scalp. And that could be a nuisance if you have a lot of hair, so I got rid of mine. The good news is you only need to do this self-skin check once every month. But people who do it almost never die from melanoma. So it's free insurance for something that could very easily save your life. So now what do you do if you find something suspicious during your self-exam? You want to get to a dermatologist. If the receptionist or your dermatologist, well, okay, If you have to go to a primary care doctor first because of your insurance, make sure you insist on a referral to a dermatologist. That's because most primary care doctors have little or no dermatology training in medical school. So right now, you probably know more about early self-detection of melanoma than 90% of primary care doctors. It's not unusual for dermatologists to be booked up months in advance. If the receptionist tells you that they can't get you in for a few months, make sure you let them know one of three things. If you have a growth that looks like a melanoma, we have many photos on our website at skincheck.org. If you have a growth that's been changing noticeably for more than a couple of weeks, or if you have a close family history of melanoma. If you tell the receptionist one or more of those last 3 points, they'll usually do their best to get you in more quickly.
Now that you know what melanoma is and how to recognize it, I'd like to discuss the role of ultraviolet radiation in causing melanoma. The sun releases a wide spectrum of radiation, and it can be categorized according to energy. On the low energy side of the spectrum is infrared radiation. When you feel the warmth of the sun, it's due to infrared, and that doesn't harm you. When you see the colors around you, it's due to visible radiation, and obviously that doesn't harm you either. As you move toward the higher energy end of the spectrum, the next kind of radiation is ultraviolet A and ultraviolet B, and they are definitely harmful. If you go even further, you have high energy ultraviolet C and X radiation. Fortunately, that radiation is absorbed by the atmosphere and doesn't reach the surface of the Earth. There are two kinds of ultraviolet radiation that reach the surface of the Earth, and both of them increase your risk of melanoma and other skin cancers. The first is ultraviolet B or UVB, and it burns the skin. When you buy a sunscreen, the SPF rating refers to how well it protects your skin from UVB if the sunscreen is properly applied. That's a big if, by the way. UVA doesn't burn your skin, but it penetrates more deeply into it, and it can cause DNA changes within the genes of the cells of your skin. You get primarily UVB radiation from the sun and primarily UVA radiation from tanning lamps, but both sources emit both kinds of radiation.
The worst thing you can do to get melanoma is to use tanning beds regularly. And that's because that deep penetrating UVA radiation from tanning lamps is more than 10 times stronger than it would be from the same time in the sun. If you're under 35, every time you use a tanning bed, you're increasing your lifetime risk of melanoma by 22%. And if you're under 30 and you use them 10 times or more in 12 months, you're increasing your risk by a factor of 8. So what do you do if you want to get what appears to be a natural looking tan without damaging your skin? The only option is to use a sunless tanner. And the sunless tanners have dyes in them that are only absorbed by dead skin cells. We all have a layer of dead skin cells on the outer edge of our skin, and we shed them off every week or 10 days or so. You can't hurt or kill anything that's already dead, and these dyes are not absorbed by living cells. Two options for getting that kind of tan. The most time-consuming but also most effective option is to get an over-the-counter product and apply it yourself. If you're in a hurry, you can use a spray booth. Now, many people will tell you that you get an unnatural orange color by using an artificial tanner. That's only true if you choose too dark a tanner for your skin. The trick is to choose one that's just a little darker than your normal skin color and build up your tan gradually over a few sessions rather than trying to do it all at once with a dark tanner. There's a website called sunless.com. It's actually a non-profit site. It has very good information. It asks you questions about your skin. Based on your answers, it recommends particular products that it thinks may be effective for you. This photo shows a young lady who has what we call type 1 skin. Very white, pale skin, never tans, burns on even slight exposure to sunlight. And the bottom photo shows what she looks like after a few self-tanning sessions. So how do you protect yourself from the sun? Not a good idea to depend on sunscreen alone. When you do choose one, look for one that's labeled broad spectrum, because that's going to protect you against both UVA and UVB. Right now, if you're confused by reading the ingredients on a sunscreen, choose one that has either zinc oxide or titanium oxide or both in them. Both of them are very good broad spectrum protectors. Currently, they're the only ingredients in a sunscreen that are approved by the Food and Drug Administration. That doesn't mean that other ingredients are harmful, it just means that FDA hasn't yet got around to fully researching them. We recommend using a sunblock stick or even a lip balm with SPF reading on the most exposed parts of your face, which are your nose, your upper cheeks, your lower lips, and the tops of your ears. The ingredients in the sunblock stick won't run into your eyes or mouth like a liquid sunscreen may sometimes do. It's a good idea to combine the use of sunscreen with protective clothing. That means a hat with a brim that goes all the way around your head so that it protects your ears and your neck, as well as your forehead. Sunglasses that are labeled 100% UV protection, and almost all of them are these days, and sun protective swimwear or other protective clothing. It's also not a good idea to be in direct sunlight between the peak hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And you need to protect yourself against reflected ultraviolet light, because you can be under a beach umbrella or in the shade, and sunlight reflecting off of light surfaces and then onto your skin can result in very significant damage. So what are light surfaces? Everything you see here, and sidewalks too, which is also a light surface. Also, clouds don't necessarily protect you from UV damage. It's especially true of UVA radiation because it can penetrate even heavy clouds, and cold weather doesn't protect you either. So now, how do you apply sunscreen? Unfortunately, the SPF rating of the sunscreen is far less important than how heavily you apply it. Very few of us apply it heavily enough. Most of us apply between 25 and 50% of the required amount, and that's been borne out by studies both in Scandinavia and in the US. Well, if you apply 25% of a high SPF 100 sunscreen, the real SPF your skin is seeing is only 3.1, and the relationship is the fourth root of 100, which is 3.1. If you apply half the amount, it's the square root of 100, which is 10. It works the other way too. You can use a low SPF 15 sunscreen. And if you apply double the amount, your true SPF is 15 squared on 225. So now what I'd like you to do is pretend you're out in the sun in a swimsuit. And now hold out one hand and cup it as deeply as you possibly can. Go ahead, do it. When I do virtual presentations, I can't check you, but on an in-person presentation, it's a piece of cake. All right, now pretend that you're filling that cupped hand with liquid sunscreen till it's just ready to overflow. That's the amount of sunscreen that you need to apply initially if you're out in the sun in a swimsuit. And you need to reapply that same amount at least once every 2 hours, anytime after you dry yourself with a towel, anytime you come out of the water, and whenever you're sweating heavily. So, an average adult spending a full day out in the sun at a beach or a pool in a swimsuit should go through a 6-ounce bottle of sunscreen by themselves during that day. Anyone here use that much or know anyone who does?
I do.
You do. Good for you.
Surprise.
You're one in 1,000.
I do now.
You're one in 1,000. That's great. But most of us don't use that much, and most of the population doesn't. So, so most of us, probably 99+% of us, are deceiving ourselves into thinking we're getting much more protection from the sunscreen than what we're really getting. Okay, so the final slide is about vitamin D. It's an essential vitamin. You probably know that one way of generating it is to expose your skin to sunlight. That's not the only way of getting it. So vitamin D begins with a natural chemical called dehydrocholesterol, which is present in the skin of humans and all warm-blooded mammals. When dehydrocholesterol is exposed to ultraviolet B radiation from the sun, it's converted into vitamin D3. And that's exactly the same vitamin D3 that you get by taking a supplement. No difference in any respect. So you don't need sun exposure to get adequate amounts of vitamin D3. Now, vitamin D3 is not vitamin D. It's a precursor. In the liver, it's converted into hydroxyvitamin D3. And then in the kidneys, that's further converted into dihydroxyvitamin D3. And that's really what vitamin D is. It's dihydroxyvitamin D3. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
How often should we be seeing a dermatologist for a checkup?
If you haven't ever seen one, it's a good idea to see one, just to get a baseline exam, so that the dermatologist can point out anything that you may need to check. After that, once a year is enough, unless the dermatologist finds something that needs to be checked more often. What's most important is to do that self-skin check, because you don't need a dermatologist. If you have a melanoma, it'll show itself on your skin.
I heard that's what Jimmy Buffett died from, melanoma.
He died of Merkel cell carcinoma, which is a very rare and even deadlier form of skin cancer than melanoma is. I think the incidence of Merkel cell in the U.S. is somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 cases a year. So it is rare. It usually looks like a bump. It tends to occur in older people in sun exposure areas of the skin. Looks like just a nodule. It's painless. You don't feel any sensation. It grows quite rapidly. But like melanoma, if you get it early, it's curable. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And I'm going to send Ari an email that has links to a video about 2 or 3 years ago. It's mostly the same content of this presentation. Also links to a high school student video and a middle school student video, both different and much shorter than this presentation, and to a teacher training video and to our 2 websites. So I'll get that to her today, and you're welcome to share with anyone who you think might be interested.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll distribute it to all the members, especially people that weren't here today, they could get it. And we also have something that we wanted to give to you in appreciation for your visit today. So we're going to make a donation to the Rotary International Fund to vaccinate 40 children against polio. And your name for thank you for coming to visit us today.
That's great. Steve, let's get a picture of it.
Thank you so much for coming. All right, with that, we'll move on to the 50-50 raffle.
Any color book, there's gonna be a lot of money to it.
Pink ticket.
Pink tickets. Today is $15.
Big 15.
And the ticket number is 832.
All right.
It was probably mine, because I lost it, but if nobody else has it. But
I have
if you want to
822.
draw it again, that's perfectly fine with me. I moved and it disappeared.
Try one more.
That's okay, you're doing all right.
It's 2 copy a piece for
825.
That's mine.
Yay!
Congratulations, 15 Walker.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. With that, this